Hi guys, this is Wenzes from Below the Radar Above the System, and now I want to talk to you about expanding, and once you expand that you do not feel people's rejection so much. There's been a lot of questions on videos, and specifically lately, like I don't even know where this comes from, where people ask me, what do you mean when you say you have to fill yourself up? I've talked about it before that I said, normally when we are not developed as INFJs, we take in other people's worldview and mental space. We don't create so much for ourselves because it's difficult. So we just kind of like take in theirs and fill ourselves up with theirs. Like with INFJs, there's always kind of this energy, this huge void that we want to fill. And we fill it up through what other people's are giving us. And by that, we take in not only the good things, but also the bad things. Because even if it was something good for others, it's not necessarily good for us. And so there's always this battle of, yeah, I need that energy from that person, but it also brings me so much pain. What do I do? And then I say you have to fill yourself up, which means that you do things on your own in order to create your own happiness. You just start with things that you feel like, well, they're not going to bring me any happiness. Like, who cares if I decorate my home? Who cares if I just sit down and cook? Who cares? I used to always think like these things. I still don't like cooking. I'm just using it as an example. But I always used to think all these things, they don't matter to me. They don't mean anything to me. But they didn't mean anything to me because I didn't give them any meaning. You can give those things meanings and get excited about those things and really take conscious choices or make conscious choices about what you value and what makes you feel better, and just really go after those things that make you feel better. Like I've heard this, I always bring this example of going to the movies and what movie do you want to watch, and I was like, I don't care. And then I started with, what if you did care? What if you did care? What would you choose? Just like off the top of your head. And then I actually had a little preference. I thought, well, it doesn't really matter, but, if I was completely by myself, I would watch that movie. And with this kind of thought, I applied that within my life and within my daily life and so on, and so it became more and more obvious, and so I filled myself up. That's what I mean with I fill myself up. I take control of my happiness. I take control of what makes me happy, and I do it on my own terms. And what happens is that people are much more aware of who I am. Like, they were not that aware of it before because I was hiding it. I was hiding it because the more you are really concrete, the more you bring out, the less people show of themselves. And since I wanted to absorb so much of them, there was no way I was showing anything of myself because I just wanted to absorb as much as I could from them. And this is just a natural dynamic, because if you are not giving any feedback or little feedback, people can't reach you, then they put more into you. They want more. They trigger you much more. Don't you always ask yourself, why do people always, snap at me or act so rude towards me or all those things when I'm not giving them any reason to? Well, that's the reason. People want to know who you are. They want to know your boundaries. They want to know who you are about. And so they go out and they do things in order to understand your boundaries, because boundaries are pretty much what shapes us in a way, especially to the outside. And it's a healthy thing. Like, I don't think like I used to think, why are they so mean, towards me? And now when I show my boundaries, people are not mean. It's not even something that they do consciously. Like, my father is not like this anymore. Like, my just friends and so on. The more I show them who they are, the less they have to push and trigger, because they know who I am. They see it right away. So first off, that's what I meant with filling yourself up. But what happens also is you feel other people's rejection so much less. Because if you have this void, and this is what I realized, and you absorb everything from others, you feel so much more what's going on within them. You feel so much more of, this is who they are, this is what hurts them, this is what what their deepest thoughts are and so on. And I always used to think of this as obviously good to be able to read that, to be able to really see them. And I thought that's the best thing that could happen. There's no way not seeing them would have any benefit. But it turned out it does. Because if you're like me and you really go into that extreme, you see that person perfectly, but you don't see yourself. You don't see yourself at all. You don't know what your values are. You lose yourself. There's nothing. You kind of like have this world where you give that person you make that person the main character in your movie instead of making your own self the main character in your movie. And we all know now that it's always necessary for you to be the main hero in your movie, in your story, and so on. And this is the only way to kind of really create a world that is really growing into the right direction, and there's no dependency in it, and there's no false manipulation and so on. It's all just like natural. Everybody wants to have wants their own boundaries to be valued and respected, and then you value others' boundaries as well. And so it's funny because I never thought this would happen, but the more I filled myself up, the less I can read people, the less I know who they are deep inside and so on. And I think it's not a bad thing at all. I think I was reading way too much into those people. I think, first off, it's not possible anyways. Like, you will never get like this complete picture of a person because you just don't know them. No matter how well you can read them, and I was really good at it. Like, really, like I've done some really great things, and I'm actually really proud of my ability to do that. But I did it like to the extreme. I did it to such an extreme that made people not respect me. I made it to a point where I just completely lost myself and so on. And now it's much more balanced. Like, I think I still care about individuals and I still want them to feel good, but it's not my task for them to be happy. Like, I realized that. I'm smaller than I thought. I realized that I'm as worthy as everybody else. I don't have the power to make you happy, and have the control over if you're happy or not. And so as I expanded, I do feel much less what those people are thinking. And the best part about it is, so you do more and more things that you think are right, and the more and more you have influence on others, and in my opinion, positive influences, because you cannot trigger people with things that is not within them. Like if I have a coworker and he kind of snaps at me, then I snap right back and I said, listen, I'm not going to have that. You can't talk to me this way. Just cut it out. I'm not having that. And I see how that kind of really shocked him, but he changed. Like, he knew that there's where my boundary is. There was a security in that. There was a, he knew what I was about, so he kind of let his guard down. He became much more approachable and so on, and is, in my opinion, much happier now, because the reason why he was snapping so much is because I was chilled. And he was not chilled, and he thought you have to be always on point and everything and do all those things. And now that he saw that I'm not going to let anybody take this away from me, this is how I want to approach life, and I don't have to obey like all those rules how you should behave, that kind of gave him permission to do that himself on his own terms. So, and before, I would have been in a position where I felt so much what's going on within him. I would have felt that, well, he feels that way because he doesn't want to, he feels he's not good enough for the job and he needs to put extra effort in and so on. And then I would have done all those things in order to try to protect him and to give him this feeling of, oh, poor you, don't worry, it's all good, and so on, which is, in a way, I've talked about it before, it's condescending. Like, I did that, it's really condescending. And it's also giving yourself more power than you should, They have to figure that out on by themselves, because that's the only way that you really, when you want freedom, you take it. If somebody gives it to you, you can't keep it, because you're not been part of taking it. You have not taken the power. If somebody else gives you something, you're just still, dependent on that. You're not free, really. But by you caring more about your happiness in a way, but with integrity, of course. It's not like I'm being selfish, which means I don't care about others, but you kind of just take a step back and understand logically, well, I know I feel that person's pain so severely now, but I also know this is not how it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to feel my pain at least as strongly as I feel that other person's pain. It cannot be that I feel that person's pain so much and I completely numb myself out. This is not good for anybody. Where's your light? Where's your influence on the world? We all are completely different, and each one of us brings something to the world which helps others find themselves, because we kind of like put out edges and so on, which helps people understand, well, I don't have to do that either. Okay, I can just go another direction which makes me feel good. And so you create more and more of your own identity, which you're in complete control of when you're not dependent on others to make you feel good. And so once you realize that you do not want to make people feel good by lying to them and making them feel like, yeah, your life is so perfect, when you actually feel like, well, you're digging your own grave and you're hurting yourself all the time. And so I was really nervous about the fact that I would not care about their feelings, but it's just something you see as it's a relation kind of thing. It's in relation to how I used to feel. I don't feel their emotions that deep anymore, but it's okay. Like, I'm not an INFP. I'm not, somebody who has who's a feeler, a dominant feeler. My task and how I feel the best is to speak my truth, put my ideas out, and kind of put like a spark and inspire people to, get the best out of themselves on their own. This is the most rewarding feeling, and much more than me trying to be like a dominant feeler who's constantly feeling what others are feeling and reacting towards it. I'm not that strong in that. That's also something where we have to understand our own limits, and this is a much better way to go that we're very often scared of, because it does require for us to be more extroverted, to express more emotions, and to get out of this FI kind of, world that we can get stuck in if we're too introverted all the time, because we do not have that big of a control over our feelings as an INFP or an ISFP would. So yeah, keep that in mind. That's it for today. Thank you for watching, and talk to you next time. Yeah, if you have comments or questions, I'm always glad to hear your feedback or read it, so please comment. Thank you for subscribing and giving the video a thumbs up if you liked it, and talk to you next time. Bye. Kind of make sure that you feel good, which means that you don't stick in that one mental space all the time. A lot, it's not just giving up the bad, it's also hurtful, because you have to give up the good. You have to be okay with